And this is Michigan's AutoTalk Podcast, and welcome in. It's episode number 86. I'm producer Phil Tower. We gave co-host Al Schwenkendorf and John Puick this episode off so they can catch up on their Christmas shopping. We remind you every episode of Michigan's AutoTalk Podcast is all about celebrating the automobile and the truck. We're everything automotive. We're also about helping and supporting you, car and truck owners across our great state of Michigan, birthplace of just about everything automotive. And of course, we are wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, including iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. And I am so glad that we have another great story that involves trucks this time and Michigan, and it is a true made in Michigan story. And who to better tell that than our return contributor and superstar writer for the Detroit Free Press. She covers everything automotive and a little bit more. She is Phoebe Wall-Howard, and I don't know where you find these stories. You just find the coolest stories. So that's why we love you. I mean, you found the story about the Mustang Mamas, and we did an episode on that. And it's funny, Phoebe, welcome, first of all.
Thank you.
Everybody sees these Ford Super Duty trucks, and I got to tell you, as the typical male suburbanite, I go, who needs one of those?
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. So, I know.
Yes.
Everybody wants one, and they're so super, utility based, and of course they are the ultimate work truck, right?
Yes.
So
anybody working in landscaping, construction, especially construction, agriculture, it's huge. Yeah, the vehicles start at about $45,000, and they can go up to $90,000 if depending on your preferences for massage seats, a larger small screen, cloth or leather. So the range from $45,000 to $90,000 on those Super Duty trucks.
Yeah, it's an amazing vehicle. It's a brand new model. This is a 2024 Ford Super Duty?
2023.
Okay.
And these orders are in. What's so incredible is that Ford Motor Company opened the order bank on October 27th. So keep in mind, these are actual orders. These aren't reservations. This is people making the commitment to buy the vehicle. In the first 5 days of the order bank opening, they received 52,000 orders.
Which was a record, right? That was a record. Yeah.
Yes. Because again, keep in mind, all the companies now are doing reservations. Tesla, Ford, others, where you raise your hand and say, I'm interested. You put down $100 and that's refundable. But this is saying, I'm going to buy this thing. And, you make out all the paperwork, just like you've gone into the dealer and you've done that many times before. But so the first 5 days, they get 52,000 orders. But it gets more incredible. And you wonder where I get these stories, because I'm a data nerd. And so people look at trends of different vehicles, but I look at the tiny small print. So on December 3rd, they did a sales report. They always say, here's what we're doing and where we're going. And I noticed by December 3rd, they had 151,000 Super Duties ordered. So how many billions of dollars is that? Your most conservative estimate would be 45,000 times 150,000, like many, many billions of dollars. So yes. Ford now is in a situation where they're 5 to 6 months of orders booked.
So basically for the 2023 model year, they're nearly sold out is what you're saying.
They won't say sold out. They are actually revising some of the factory production protocols to try to increase output. Right now, Ford produces about 26,000 Super Duties a month. So that gives you an idea of where the baseline. So they're working actually to increase that.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. By the way, we're speaking with the Detroit Free Press automotive writer Phoebe Wall-Howard, and we're talking about the record-setting, as she said in her article in the December 3rd edition of the Detroit Free Press. You can find it at freep.com. an insane pace. This is the brand new Ford Super Duty. These are not, as Phoebe pointed out, these are not reservations. These are actual people who said, I want to order this car, and they had to put money down. So these are actual sales, essentially, is what it comes down to, of these vehicles, which is just absolutely amazing. And even better, Phoebe, is you found a really cool story in a story. It's an Easter egg story that, and this is what's wonderful. This is a story that actually came before the record-setting sales that you had done, and you sent me this. I missed this story somehow. An engineer that worked on the 2023 Ford Super Duty, actually as a seventh grader, drew a picture of a truck. His dream was to work for Ford Trucks, and essentially the teacher laughed at it, and said, "What are you kidding? You want to be an engineer?" And he ended up being an engineer, and he had the last laugh. But there's a little bit more to that story, right?
Well, it was a sweet story and a sad story, because he vividly remembered, and in fact, his wife was in the class, right? So this is a grown guy. This
Wow.
is 40 years later, and but he was very proud, but the teacher couldn't understand why he didn't. He said everyone was talking about becoming a lawyer and becoming a doctor, and he loved trucks so much. And so when she laughed and the class laughed, he didn't understand that at all. And what was so amazing about that story is that after that story ran, the wife of another engineer contacted me and told me about her husband at age 7, saying in a school essay at a Catholic school here in Michigan that he wanted to grow up and drive trucks. And the teacher sent that letter to Ford Motor Company in 1978 and his drawings. And the company sent back a very long reply about his imagination and well done. And it's just, you track some of these dreams of little boys and little girls. And that's how we get these great products.
Wow, I absolutely love it. So there were 2 engineers with really cool backstories. The one I'm looking at from, this is September 28th issue at Freep.com, Aaron Bresky, who is now a 50-year-old engineer. He's standing next to the truck. It is a beautiful truck, and this is pretty amazing. He's worked on every single Super Duty since the original debuted it'll be 25 years in 2023 as a 1999 model, which is pretty cool. But these are, Phoebe, I guess let's stop for a second. I love the human aspect of this and the engineers and their backstories. What makes this 2023 Ford Super Duty so cool? I mean, for it to sell out like this, something, I guess, anticipation, what do you think triggered that?
Well, a couple of things. So people say, what's the difference between a Super Duty and like an F-150? And remember that this is for the heaviest. These are not going to be electric vehicles anytime in the near future, because the amount they have to tow, haul, plow, off-road, driving for work is so huge. So this is not battery electric, just to be very clear. This is your internal combustion engine. What makes it unique is because it's got an all-new design, I think you have people waiting for, frankly, the best new equipment. And so you're towing more, you're hauling more. And some people forget the difference even between towing and hauling. And I like to remind them that towing is how much you can pull, and hauling is how much you can put into the truck and haul. So some people use those as synonyms, and they're not. But this is just one feature that's the most popular new feature. In fact, when they drove the Super Duties in the Thanksgiving Day parade in Detroit, people were screaming and shouting about the new feature. And there's actually a cut in the truck on the exterior that it's a step that's built into the truck. So you can put your foot, it's like you might have stood on a tire to reach in, or you might have brought a ladder, or you would have had to pull down the gate.
Right.
And now they've built the step into the side of the truck. And so men in particular and work guys love this. It speeds everything up. It's much more comfortable. And obviously they got these ideas observing people in the field.
Yeah.
Ford sends people out and they live with people, they observe them in the workplace, and they watch modifications people are making, and then they take that back to the designers.
Yeah. This is, I just was looking at a paragraph in the story about the engineer, Aaron Bresky, but this is, we're talking about money. And this is not only a beautiful piece of engineering, this 2023 Ford Super Duty truck, which is going to be released sometime. They'll take delivery of this sometime in 2023, right, Phoebe Wall-Howard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to share this paragraph with our listeners. And again, you can check this out at freep.com, but you're talking about this vehicle as a money machine. So get a load of this. While the Ford F-Series trucks generated more than $40 billion in revenue in 2021, that's more than Nike, Coke, and Starbucks. It was Super Duty on its own that generated more than Southwest, Marriott, or Nordstrom, according to the Fortune 500, according to a Ford news release that was a part of this article that you published in September of this year. By the way, you and I were just ruminating earlier in this podcast. Our guest is Phoebe Wall-Howard, super amazing automotive writer for the Detroit Free Press. $45,000 average, and that is the base, right, Phoebe, for the Super Duty?
That's the base price. That's the least you can pay. That's including $2,000 in fees. You know, you get your delivery fees. But yeah, the lowest you can pay is $45,000, and frankly, many more of them are closer to the high end, which is $90,000.
Okay, so the minimum that Ford would make, assuming $45,000 per vehicle at 150,000 orders already placed, is $6.75 billion. And if you figure that average sale is going to be closer to 60, right? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, about the middle of between 45 and 90 that's the top end loaded Ford Super Duty 2023. You're looking probably closer to around $10 billion just for that Super Duty alone. And it's fair to say, right, Phoebe, that they'll probably pack in another 30, 40, 50,000 orders before the end of the model year, right?
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, these orders are, again, this is all we have right now is 5 weeks of orders, and they're at 151,000. I mean, they're taking orders in as fast as physically possible. This is where you go in and you actually meet with a dealer. This is not an online thing. I mean, you're going through the whole process. So dealers are getting these as quickly as they can. And it's also important to remember, these are the vehicles that fund the transition in technology for Ford in the future. So this is funding all the electrification, all the technology. It's the internal combustion engine vehicles that are so popular and have such a huge following that then pay for the research to look at new development ideas and new technology.
By the way, before we wrap up this episode with Phoebe Wall-Howard from the Detroit Free Press, the other story that you had mentioned, and we'll put all of these links up on our podcast page for Michigan's AutoTalk Podcast, was the story of Peter. Is his last name Bejin? Bejin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peter Bejin. He was the one who was a 7-year-old, wrote this assignment, and I'm looking at it. When he was 7 years old, as a child living in Grosse Pointe Woods, if I drove a Ford truck, I would like to drive a Ford truck because I think a Ford truck would be good, and because a Ford truck, but I love the product placement in here. Ford truck is good for me, and that makes Ford trucks good, and that drive good and smooth. How do you like my story? That's pretty amazing, and then he has a picture of it. And it was his wife that notified you of this? Is that how you found out about this?
That's exactly how I found out about it. She said, I know you've been writing about Super Duties. I have to send you this letter we have from 1978. And it was 1 minute to midnight. She sent me the note, first of all, before Thanksgiving. So it was Thanksgiving Eve, 1 minute before midnight. And
I love it.
She said, he's down at the parade. And I said, oh my God, I have to do a story on this right this minute. And she was just ecstatic. What's really funny is one of the engineers told me that all this Super Duty attention, their daughters go on dates and these boys are just in awe. It's like Mick Jagger is your dad because you're the Super Duty engineer.
Yeah. I absolutely love it. And who thought engineers like this would be viewed as rock stars? But in today's automotive world, they absolutely are. What a great story about really an iconic truck brand and now a brand that's just getting bigger. And as you put it in your article in the Free Press, it is truly a money machine. And if you ever wondered why these automotive companies are continually innovating and selling what they know are their hits, which is their big vehicles. Of course, you and I both know it's the crossovers and SUVs and the electrics. But as you said, isn't it interesting? This fossil fuel beast is just a moneymaker. Isn't that amazing, Phoebe?
Well, and also keep in mind as we head into, winter, when you see plowing trucks, the vast majority of those are going to be Super Duties.
Yep.
And the people I know who plow, they own 3 and 4 small businesses. They own 3 and 4 Super Duties, and they order the new ones and the most efficient. And that's kind of what's running the pulse.
Yeah.
Out in the world there. Yeah.
Used all across the country and forestry and heavy industry and beyond, and it's no doubt. Phoebe Wall-Howard, always a pleasure. Always love talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. I appreciate you. Have a good night now.
And we appreciate you. She's been our guest on this episode of Michigan's AutoTalk Podcast. Alan John will return in our next episode. Until then, for Michigan's AutoTalk Podcast, I'm producer Phil Tower. Thank you so much for listening.